We'll be in Matthew 25 this morning if you want to be opening your Bibles there. Matthew chapter 25. In the front of the bulletin, I have mentioned that these books are on the front pew here. I brought another box over this morning, so there are several. If you have not already gotten one, you need to do so, so that I can make sure we've got enough and give a week or so to order some more if that need to be the case. These will be our devotional books for 2020, Lord willing. The elders have made available one per family, one per house rather, one per household. So please make sure your home has one. If you would like additional copies, we can make those available for $9 a piece, but each house needs one, and the elders have provided for each house to have one. Lord willing, in January, we will begin going through this book on Sunday mornings. And so if you're an overachiever and you want to be ahead of the game, then you need to start December the 30th reading week 1. Because on January the 5th, maybe, whatever, the first Sunday is, we're going to cover week 1. If you are not an overachiever and you want to just keep up with me, then you can read week 1 starting January the 6th, which will be that Monday, I believe. And so if you want to get ahead, the way to get ahead is start December the 30th and read the first week that week. If you want to read it as we go along, then you can start on January the 6th and follow up with that week 1 after having covered it on that Sunday morning. And so whichever you prefer, you help yourself. I know some like to be ahead, and others do good to just stay up, and I'm one of those. And so anyway, wherever you fall, there you go. Please pick up one so that I can see if we need some more and get them ordered. Yesterday morning was great. For all those men who came, took out of your Saturday, I just want to say publicly thank you to you for coming, for being a part of that, and we were all spiritually enriched from Brother Vance, and thank you for being here and supporting that day. If you weren't able to come, hope you'll be here next year. I made cookies last night, okay? That's a warning, right? If I was you, I wouldn't eat them either. But if you'd like to come, the house will be open from 2 to 4 today. Love to have you stop by and share a cookie with us if you dare to try them, and visit with us for a little while and just enjoy the holiday spirit together. In Matthew 25, Jesus begins this chapter with a parable. The kingdom of heaven is like. That's the way Matthew would begin all of them, right? Jesus would say the kingdom of heaven is like, and he would then proceed to tell us a parable that maybe nobody in this building is ignorant of. Maybe we've all heard at some point in some way about these 10 virgins. As I've been mentioning, these parables in the month of December are all about eternity. They're all about the end of time. They're all from Matthew's account of parables that only Matthew gives us, but they're all about being prepared, being watchful. He says in verse 13 of Matthew 25, "Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." That is the whole point of the parable of the 10 virgins. As a matter of fact, Jesus had just spent the 24th chapter of the book of Matthew talking about the signs of the destruction of Jerusalem, talking about the signs of the end of time, the coming of the Son of Man. He follows that up as he closes that out, rather, in verse 42 of chapter 24. "Therefore, stay awake." You see, that's the point. Stay awake, for you do not know what day the Lord is coming. It is the idea of watchfulness. It is the idea of preparation. It is an idea that I want to dive off into much deeper tonight, Lord willing, at 6 o'clock. What are some things that you and I need to be watching for? What are some things that you and I need to be preparing on a constant basis to be ready? Because the emphasis is watch. watch. That's why Jesus tells this parable. But there's another sidebar to this parable that I want us to look at this morning. Here's the question I have. How will the Lord's delay affect you? We would all admit that the Lord delayed himself yesterday. It would be a fact of time. The Lord did not choose to come back yesterday. So he delayed. Well, I don't know when he's coming, and neither do you. I don't know if he'll delay today or not, and neither do you. But what I can say with 100% confidence is that he delayed yesterday. And so the question I have for you this morning is, how will the Lord's delay affect your soul? Meaning, because he didn't come yesterday, will that be a good thing for you or a bad thing? If he came today and chose not to delay tomorrow, or if he doesn't come today and he delays today too into tomorrow, how will that be a good thing? Or will that be a bad thing? You see, as I read the parable of the 10 virgins, the 5th verse is where it all hangs for me. As the bridegroom was delayed. There's the issue. The issue is not whether we have lamps or not. The issue is not even whether we have oil or not. The issue is the timing of which the bridegroom comes. And it just so happened that he was delayed or tarried, your translation may say, in his coming. In other words, it didn't happen when we thought it was going to happen. I've wrestled with this debate for years, and I guess I will for all of my life. I really don't know whether I would like to know when the Lord is coming or not. Maybe you've never thought about that, but I think about it from time to time. And here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking if I knew, then that would be a great thing, right? Because if I knew, then I could have went fishing this morning if it wasn't going to be today, right? I mean, after all, if I knew when the deadline was, I know me well enough to know that I am not going to start studying for that test till the night before, all right? I am not going to start writing that paper till the night before. I am not promoting that exercise. I'm simply admitting a truth. When I know when the deadline is, I know how to work right up to the point of the deadline to get it done. I just think in one sense of the thought, if I knew when he was coming, I would know the deadline, and therefore I could just do what I wanted to until the deadline came. I think there would be a lot more people that would be ready to meet the Lord if they knew when the deadline was coming. And so for that, I think it would be a great thing. But then the flip side of that is, what if I really did know? Wouldn't that be tough to know that the deadline was coming? Well, there have been occasions in my life, very few and far between, when I was fully prepared for that test. I mean, I had started early and I had studied long and I knew the test inside and out. But I have never walked into the classroom going, yes, today is test day. I just don't think we think like that. So even if you know when the deadline is, or if you don't know when the deadline is, whether you're prepared or not, I'm just struggling with what would be better. Because not knowing allows me to live each day as though it were the day, and I don't fret or I'm not concerned. Being prepared for that time to come, watching and being ready whenever it comes. As the book of Revelation closes, John says, come, Lord Jesus, come quickly. What happens in Matthew 25, if you don't know the story, there was a bridegroom We'll call him for application purposes Jesus. And the bridegroom is going to, if I understand the custom correctly, of the day, the bridegroom would go to the bride's house and get the bride and bring her to his house. And there would be a period of time where they would spend together at the groom's house with his family and all preceding the wedding there. The bride's friends would join her to come to the groom's house, and they would camp out, as it were, around the premises anticipating the wedding. And so when the wedding processional would come out, they would then follow in, the bridesmaids would follow in and join the bride and the groom going to the wedding. If I understand the historical background correctly, the only problem with that is that the groom's family would have to suffice the bride's family to a dowry, and there would have to be contemplation and agreement on a bunch of arrangements before the wedding could occur. Thus why she would need to be in his home working out things with his family, because essentially she would become their property. And I don't mean that derogatory or in any way demeaning to women. I just simply mean that she would carry his name, and she would bear the children that would take the inheritance, and so forth and so on. And so all of this would have to be arranged, as it were, and nobody knew the exact timing of when all that would be settled. And so they would sit outside and wait. And apparently that's what they're doing. And all 10 of them, all 10 bridesmaids, if that's what we can call them, come to the wedding arrangement prepared for the adequate amount of time that it should take. In other words, when do you show up today? You show up on Thursday, Friday, to get ready for the Saturday wedding. You plan a couple of days. The bridesmaids start coming in, and they start helping decorate and get last-minute things together with the bride and her family, and get ready for this big wedding day, this big special day. You plan that time, and you plan for an adequate amount of time, whatever that is. If the bride says, hey, I haven't got anything done, then you might go in on Monday, right, or Tuesday, and try to help her as a bridesmaid to get some last-minute things done. But whatever the time is, you know that come Friday night or come Saturday or Saturday night or whenever the wedding is, you know when it is. It would be far-fetched for us to think, a bridesmaid has come to town, and on the night before the wedding, she looks up and says, oh no, I don't have any clean clothes to wear tomorrow. What do you mean you don't have? You knew we were staying till the wedding day, right? I mean, we've had this thing on the calendar for months now. Oh, well, I didn't bring enough clothes for the time. Well, all of that time was planned out. You should have been well prepared for that. All of these virgins come well prepared for the time. But the issue is, verse 5, the delay. It's not that they weren't accurately assessing what they were going for. It's not that they didn't bring a lamp. They all 10 had a lamp. It's not that they didn't bring oil. They all 10 had oil. It's just the fact that the 5 who are referred to as foolish, when the cry comes, verse 6, at midnight, the sound comes crying forth that the bridegroom is coming, meaning everything has been settled and all is well and we're ready for the wedding. And it's time for this wedding march to occur and for them to come out and meet him and the bride and participate in all of this. They get up, verse 7, and they trim their lamps, that is all 10 of them. And immediately, verse 8, the foolish notice, we don't have enough oil. So they begin to request oil, verse 8, and the wise say, we can't spare you any oil, or we won't have any for ourselves. You see, the delay caused them to become drowsy and fall asleep, verse 5. When they fell asleep, they lost the need to prepare for the bridegroom coming because they were idle. They were in an unconscious, unresponsive state there, and so they wasn't paying any attention to their lamps or to their torches or whatever they were. Had they been, guess what? They would have noticed, hey, our oil is getting low. We might ought to come up with a plan to get some more. But the problem is they were asleep. And when the cry comes, they're not watching, they're not prepared for this delay, and this time has gone on, and now their lamps have, and as they try to fuel them back up and brighten them back up, as they seek to add oil to try to make them glow brighter, they don't have the oil necessary to do so. And so they have to go at the instruction of the wise virgins to buy more, and apparently they do. What is the difference between wise and foolish? What is the contrast that's ultimately being made here? I think the first thing you got to notice that in order to be wise and not foolish, preparation has to be made beforehand. You see, it's not about showing up and looking at what we need here and then preparing for what we need. It's about anticipating what we need before we show up so that we can bring with us what we'll need when we get there. The preparation has to go in beforehand to think about what could or could not happen. And again, the issue is verse 5. It doesn't play out the way they planned for it to play out. And guess what? Some of life don't, right? And if you're thinking that you can plan out the return of Christ, then you've got a surprise coming somewhere. Because you don't get to plan that out. What you do get to do is prepare for it. When you back up in your Bible to Matthew 7 and verse 24, Jesus tells this story about a wise man and a foolish man. And the kids sing this wonderful song about building a house. And Jesus said that the wise man built his house on the rock. And the rains came and the winds blew. And his house stood firm. He uses this contrast of wise and foolish that he uses here in Matthew 25 of the virgins, 5 wise virgins and 5 foolish virgins. He says in Matthew 7 of the foolish man, he built his house on the sand. And you know what happened, right? The rains came and the winds blew and the house went, well, the song says the house went splat. The Bible says it fell and great was the fall of it. What's the difference? Well, you say the difference is the rock and the sand. Okay, fair enough. If you want to be oversimplistic there you go. They both built a house, didn't they? They both endured a storm that came through. What's the difference? If you read Matthew 7, the difference is one did what God said and one did not. You see, the wise man was one who heard the word and did what God said. The foolish man was one who didn't make preparation because he didn't do what God had commanded him to do. The difference between wise and foolish is preparation, but not just preparation, but timing. Timing. We all perhaps have been late before. Why were you late? What happened? Did you not prepare? Did you not start early enough? Did you not make necessary things in order to arrive on time? Or was it the case that some unexpected things come up and you didn't know that was going to happen, or you didn't know you were going to have to do that, or you didn't anticipate that was going to occur? Wise versus foolish involves an element of timing. You see, when you read verse 6, at midnight. Really? At midnight? I have done a lot of weddings in my life, but I've never done one at midnight. You know, I'd rather do that as I had to do one at 10 o'clock in the morning, if you want just the crude honesty. But I've never done one at midnight. Now let's have a wedding. When do you want to have it? Well, let's just have all about midnight. What do you think? Well, I think we need to have it inside, so we have some lights, right? See, we're not planning weddings at midnight. It's not normal. It's not natural. It's not even feasible in a lot of sense of the word. Here he comes at midnight. You see, it's about timing. I've told you before, and I tell you again, a teacher that gives pop quizzes ought to be fired. I believe that. But I will tell you that a teacher that gives pop quizzes will keep her students on their toes, or they will fail, right? We might just learn more from pop quizzes along the way, because it's all about timing. It's all about timing. You see, if you know when the test is coming, and you know what's on the test, and you know what you need to study for the test, I mean, you want to divide the wise from the foolish? Well, that's pretty simple. The foolish don't study, and the wise do. But when we start talking about timing of unexpected things, now we get into a different realm of trying to divide the wise and the foolish, because in order to be wise, you have to always be prepared. And that's not near as easy as knowing the deadline and accomplishing it before the deadline. The timing, the difference between wise and foolish. And so, verse 8, they began to try to get some of their oil, and they don't want their lamps to go out. But the wise said, no, we didn't plan this timing either. But what we did do was bring an extra suit of clothes. And so we're prepared to stay an extra day. Well, our suitcases are not empty of clothing. Our clothes are not all dirty. If we allow you one of our change of clothes, then we won't have any clothes in our suitcase. We might need to stay another day. You see, we came prepared because we realized that the timing was not in our hands. I hope this doesn't happen, but I better be really careful here, right? Who planned the timing for this afternoon? How would you feel if you showed up at 2 o'clock and I showed up at 2:10? I planned the timing. Of all people that ought to be there from 2 to 4, it ought to be me, right? See, when you plan how do you feel when somebody plans the timing and then they're not there? It's one thing for you not to be in control of the timing. They're not in control of the timing. The bridegroom is. When he comes is up to him, and when all of that is agreed. The wise virgins know this. The foolish ones, unfortunately, had not prepared for that. How do you distinguish between the wise and the foolish? Let me give you one more. It's in verse 10. The wise get to go in, and the foolish don't. The wise are there when the door is open. I did a lesson one time from Polishing the Pulpit that I heard over there entitled, "And the Door Was Shut." It's pretty emphatic language. And the door was shut. Verse 10 draws a line between the wise and the foolish that is unmistakable. The wise are on the inside, the foolish are on the outside. 1 Peter 4, Johnny read it, verses 17 and 18. Judgment is going to begin in the house of God. And verse 18 says, if the righteous be scarcely saved, what will become of the unrighteous and sinners? They'll be on the outside. The door will be shut, and they'll be on the outside. A few weeks ago, I mentioned in a Sunday night lesson about very few, if any, of our songs have this idea of hell in them. And Mickey Layton sends me a message and says, there used to be one. Oh, there did. I heard it. And most times it's called Standing Outside. And you just Google it, and you listen to the words of the song, Standing Outside. Or Surely Judgment is Coming. That was another name. Oh, it's brutal. It's cold. It's dark. And you're standing outside. The image of the words of the song is that Judgment Day is coming. And there's a fine line between the wise and the foolish. It's not a line, it's a door. Verse 10, and the door was shut. The opportunity's gone then. The chances for preparation is over. That appointment has come that the authors of Hebrews talk about in Hebrews 9 and verse 27. That appointment of death has come and the door is shut. A door that cannot be reopened. It is finalized. It does not swing both ways, and you do not have a key. You cannot open it. You cannot close it. Only God can. And when he opens it, and when he closes it, you do not know. And neither do I. But be advised this morning, you want to know the difference between the wise and the foolish? The wise are ready to go in the door when it's open. Kind of like the church in Philadelphia in Revelation chapter 3. Beginning in verse 7, Jesus wrote to the church at Philadelphia, and he says, you are like an open door. I will continue to keep you like an open door that no one can shut, no one can close. He had nothing bad to say about the church at Philadelphia. You're an open door. You're a great beacon of light in the community of Philadelphia. The wise are that prepared group that are ready to go in when the door is open. The foolish will be standing outside when the door is shut. They come running back and the door is shut. They knock on the door and the door is shut. They beg to get in, and the door is shut. So Jesus says, watch, therefore. Verse 13, for you know neither the day nor the hour when the door will be shut. And so in the meantime, what you do is you prepare. Getting ready for whatever timing may come, you prepare. You be prepared and you stay prepared. And when the timing comes, you are prepared to be among the wise. The bridegroom is coming. His name is Jesus. His return in the parable, the second coming. Watch, therefore, for it will occur. My question to you is, how will the Lord's delay affect your soul? It might just be that his delay yesterday is what's going to give you a chance to make heaven in eternity. But that's up to you. And it's up to me. If you need to come, we invite you as we stand and sing.